بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
Okay, now in this section, we'll try to understand about the web service APIs. Now, previously we have already seen the APIs. APIs are responsible for communication between the two different applications. So when two different applications are talking to each other, they need an API. So if you take an example in our network, probably if any application want to talk to the controller or the controller want to talk to the networking devices, so basically the medium will be an API. But now the question is, okay, how exactly they will communicate, or how the request, or what format they are going to they are going to exchange the information, or they are going to talk. So there must be some kind of means of communication. There should be some kind of method or a protocol or proper way they should interact with each other. So there are many ways they will interact. So one of the common way is they will be using the HTTP request. So similar to HTTP pages, like if you take an example of a normal HTTP request we use for accessing the web pages. So we go to the browser and we simply type in that I want to go to this website. Now the HTTP request will go and request the web server, and the web server is going to get back to the web page. So probably here also we are going to use a similar thing, but here it's not again the website here. So here also probably an application may request some information from the device, or maybe from the controller, and then that particular device or the controller is going to send that information. Like in this example, as per this diagram, you can see maybe this device or this application running on the controller is requesting to get the information of the device. Like I want to get the status of the router 1. Okay, so this communication is based on web again. So there are other options as well, but mostly whatever the APIs which are using a web-based request in exchanging or in talking with each other, we call those kind of APIs as web service API. So they typically uses HTTP messages to send and receive the information between the controller or any other application, or between the controller and the networking devices in our examples. And one more thing, we need to make sure that they do have a reachability. Of course, they will have an IP reachability. Underlying network should be reachable, and over that network, they will be using some HTTP request to get the information or to talk to each other. Now, again, this web service APIs, the data is referred in the form of URIs or URLs. Now, again, URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, and URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, so what exactly these URIs? URIs are actually a string of characters. We can say just like URL, a string of characters which is going to identify that particular resource. Like if you take an example here, I got some sample example here. Now this is a URL taken from one of the API, probably that is running on Cisco controller. And this is the example here. This is how it looks, the URI. Now this URI is an example which is going to request the networking device to provide the VLAN information from so and so network device, whatever the ID assigned to that particular networking device. Okay, so probably the data will be referred in this format, and this format we call them as URIs or URLs. Okay, so now the thing is, like, let's say this is my controller, and this controller is going to send out a request to the router to get the information from the router. And we said it is a web-based. In case of web service APIs, they will be using HTTP request. Now the question is only HTTP is used? Now probably there are multiple ways. Like generally we use a CLI. Now we'll be using CLI as well, where with the help of CLI I can go and tell the controller that okay, show me the interfaces by using show IP interface brief. So when I go to my CLI of the controller and say show IP interface brief, it is going to send out that command onto the device, and you get the output displayed on your screen on the controller without going to the actual device. So this is again one method. One method. We still have this method. Okay, so we'll be using still the command line interface where the controller is going to initiate a remote SSH session, probably to connect to the device and get the statistics. But apart from that, we can also send a request, the data or the information from the networking devices in the form of web request as well. And that is where this web service APIs are used. So instead of command line, we are also using the web-based request. And those requests will be similar, like show me the routing table, how the routing table looks like. Or you can send an instruction saying that configure this specific VLAN, this number of VLANs on these particular selected switches. Or you can say, okay, configure the specific policies probably on those specific devices. So the communication between the controller and the networking devices will be the similar to command line, but mostly here we'll be using in the form of web request. So they look similar to the web page, but exactly they are not the web page. Okay, so they are similar to based on the web request. Okay, so this URS again, as I said, uniform resource identifiers are not meant to provide the web pages. So it's totally different from the web pages. We can say this is more like a structure or the format which is being used to get the information or send some kind of configuration information or request some kind of information. As I already defined, the format will be in this format, the URI format will be, and this URI format is going to define the structure, like from which device and what information exactly I require. Again, finally, with the help of this web service APIs, as I already discussed, we can add a new information. We can simply go and send that, okay, add this VLAN information or modify these routing configurations, or we can request for information. I can ask saying that, okay, show me the status of the interfaces or show me the CPU resource utilizations probably, or you can modify the existing information, or even you can delete or remove the information. So there are some specific web request options are there. Probably I'll be talking about that more in the next coming topics.